Night falls over New York Harbor. Fog drifts across the water like ghosts returning from forgotten stories. Cargo ships sleep at anchor, their hulls creaking in the dark, chains humming softly against the dock. Distant horns echo through the cold air, and the wind whispers through towering cranes like restless spirits searching the city's underbelly. And somewhere in that darkness, a story begins. A story not written in history books, not recorded in headlines. A story whispered in prison yards and buried in sealed government files. A story about a war that needed criminals, and a criminal who needed a war. His name was Lucky Luciano, the king who fell. Before the world called him a legend, he was flesh and blood. A man with ambition carved into his bones and survival stitched into his soul. Charles Lucky Luciano, the architect of the American Mafia Commission. The man who turned street gangs into an empire. A leader who understood one truth. Power does not live in bullets. It lives in decisions. But power is a fragile kingdom. And in 1936, that kingdom fell. Thomas E. Dewey, rising prosecutor, hungry for glory, marched into history with one target in sight. He wanted Luciano's head, and he got it. The charges were compulsory prostitution and racketeering, a case built on witnesses dragged from smoke-filled brothels and trembling alleyways. The trial was theater. The verdict was destiny. Luciano was sentenced to 30 to 50 years in prison. The newspapers called it justice. The streets called it war. He was shipped to Dannemora prison, a place the inmates called the Siberia of America. Steel doors closed. The world outside moved on. Or so they believed. Because legends don't disappear. They wait. They listen. They prepare. The war comes to New York. December 7th, 1941. Pearl Harbor burns beneath a sky of black smoke and fire. The world shatters into war. The United States is thrown into chaos. Factories roar to life. Cities mobilize. Every harbor becomes a lifeline to Europe. And New York Harbor becomes the beating heart of the war machine. Ships depart every day, carrying food, ammunition, men. Every ship is a promise. Every ship is a risk. Because in the darkness beneath the waves, German U-boats are waiting. And they are hungry. One winter night, flames explode through the sky over Long Island Sound. A merchant ship burns. 2 nights later, another. Sabotage whispers through the docks like poison. No one knows who is doing it. No one can prove how. But fear spreads like wildfire. Dockworkers stop talking. Police patrols multiply. The government senses an enemy they cannot see. And deep inside closed-door briefings, a terrible realization emerges. The United States military controls the ships. But the docks? The docks belong to the mob. Operation Underworld. From the shadows of Washington, an order is spoken quietly. Find someone who can control the waterfront. Someone the men fear. Someone they obey. Only one name survives the conversation. Lucky Luciano. But there is a problem. He is buried behind walls of stone. So the Navy calls a meeting, secret, unmarked, and silent. A small group of uniformed officers sit across from a single civilian. His name is Meyer Lansky, Luciano's friend, his strategist, his mirror in silence. The Navy explains the situation. Sabotage, fear, chaos on the docks. They ask one question. Can the Mafia protect the harbor? Lansky does not blink. He does not negotiate. He answers simply, yes, but you're talking to the wrong man. There is only one person who can command that world. Luciano. The Navy hesitates. He is a criminal, a convicted racketeer, a man society condemned. But the war does not care about morality. War cares about results. Operation codename. Underworld. The prison visit. The world outside is snow and iron when the guards walk down the corridor of Dannemora prison. Their boots echo like hammers on stone. Metal doors slam one by one. They stop at a cell. Luciano sits on his bunk, silent, calm, unreadable. Years in prison have turned his expression into marble light. The warden steps aside as 2 men enter. Navy intelligence. No badges. No salute. Just eyes that carry secrets. One of them speaks. Mr. Luciano, your country needs your help. For the first time in years. Luciano smiles. A deal in the shadows. They talk in a small room deep within the prison. No transcripts. No reporters. No witnesses. Only strategy. The Navy explains. Ships are burning. Dockers are terrified of spies. Union leaders can't be trusted. Only one thing controls the harbor. Respect. Respect and fear. Luciano listens. He does not rush. He does not flatter. He asks one question. What do I get? Silence hangs in the room like smoke. They cannot promise freedom. They cannot sign a pardon. But they can promise a possibility. Luciano nods slowly. He is not a patriot. He is not a hero. He is a strategist. And war is an opportunity. He agrees. The deal has no paper, no contract, only shadows. The message travels. Word spreads through the prison system first. Letters move quietly. Phone calls ring in coded sentences. Old loyalties awaken from long sleep. From cell to whisper. From whisper to street. From street to pier. Names like Albert Anastasia, Joe Adonis Dodo, Frank Costello. Men who controlled unions. Men who commanded fear. A single instruction is spoken. No one touches the docks. No one burns a ship. Anyone who does disappears. The change is immediate. The sabotage stops. The workers return. The harbor breathes again. And in government briefings, quietly, secretly, someone writes, efficiency restored, threat neutralized. But no one writes how. Because some victories are not meant for daylight. The night the mob met the Navy. But Operation Underworld went deeper. The Navy did not only need protection. They needed information. Rumors spread that Mafia boats moved through dark waters, not smuggling liquor, but scouting enemy activity, listening for German signals, monitoring suspicious movements. Fishing boats became ghost sentinels. Sailors reported strange silhouettes drifting at night. Never hostile, never close, just watching. The Mafia did not do this for patriotism. They did it because the agreement demanded results. Luciano's influence was undeniable. The docks ran smoother than ever. Ships departed without interference. Workers labored with discipline and silence. And somewhere deep inside a cell, Luciano knew, power does not need a throne. Sometimes, power lives in chains. The trial of reputation. But outside the shadows, the world did not forget. Newspapers still painted him as a monster. Politicians still called him poison. A war deal with a crime boss. Impossible. Unthinkable. Unacceptable. And yet, quietly, secretly, general after general, officer after officer, wrote letters. Letters that remained sealed for years. Letters that spoke the truth. Without Luciano's influence, we could not guarantee the security of New York Harbor. History pretended not to see. But history remembers everything. Even the things it refuses to admit. The price of cooperation. Years pass. The war ends. America returns home. And now, the debt must be addressed. A courtroom fills in 1946. Judges, lawyers, reporters. Luciano stands before them. Older, calmer, wiser. The world expects a criminal. Instead, they see a man the government now owes something to. Witnesses speak. Officers testify, quietly, carefully, reluctantly. They cannot deny the truth. Luciano helped protect the harbor. Luciano helped the war effort. Luciano helped the United States. But justice is never simple. His sentence is commuted. Not cleared. Not erased. Reduced. On one condition. He will be deported to Italy. Forever. No return. No empire. No home. The price of cooperation is exile. The last look at New York. He boards the ship at dawn. The skyline rises behind him. Cold, distant, golden in the morning sun. New York. The city he built. The streets that knew his footsteps. The world that whispered his name. He does not wave. He does not look back twice. Because men like Luciano understand something most men never learn. The past is a kingdom. But a kingdom you can never rule again. Exile. Naples receives him with wind and silence. The air smells of sea salt and old stone. Church bells echo through narrow streets. The world moves slower here. But the past does not sleep. In Italy, his legend follows him like a shadow. Politicians fear him. Police monitor him. Gangsters look to him for guidance. The government restricts his movement. He lives under watch. He lives under suspicion. But inside his mind, the commission still breathes. America may have exiled the man, but they could never exile the idea, the weight of memory. Years pass like drifting smoke. Luciano grows older, quieter, more reflective. He remembers the past, the nights in Harlem, the rise of power, the betrayal of friends, the courtroom silence, The prison deal no one would admit existed. Did he regret? Did he feel remorse? No one truly knows. But perhaps in the quiet moments, he understood one final truth. History does not judge men by their virtue. It judges them by their impact. And lucky Luciano left an impact the world could never erase. The legacy of the deal. Operation Underworld remained a secret for decades, locked away in files marked classified, do not disclose. When the truth finally emerged, it shocked the world. The United States government had made a deal with the Mafia. Law and crime, justice and corruption, patriotism and power, all meeting in one silent room. With no witnesses, historians debated, politicians denied, journalists speculated. But one fact remained. When the war came to New York Harbor, it was not politicians, or judges, or union leaders who kept the docks running. It was a man behind prison walls. A man the world called criminal. A man history calls complicated. War has a way of revealing truths the world does not want to face. It shows us that heroes are not always saints, and villains are not always without purpose. Lucky Luciano was no savior. He was no patriot. He was a man born in darkness, who understood how darkness moves. And when the world needed someone who could command shadows, they came to him. Because sometimes, to fight a greater evil, you must strike a bargain with the one evil you already know. And that bargain became one of the most hidden chapters in American history. A chapter written in whispers. A chapter signed in silence. A chapter called